Good evening, my dear friends. Imagine a situation where all the depositors of a bank rush to the bank to collect their deposits. It is a very, very vulnerable situation. What happens is that there will not be enough liquidity or enough cash with the bank for gratifying the needs of all its depositors. As you may be knowing, that banking is an institution which collects deposits from the public and lends to the borrowers. There may be long term borrowers like housing finance and business people who are on a medium term borrowing from the banks, and even short term cash credits and overdrafts are also operating. So, banking is the institution where the collections from the depositors are being channelized into the borrowers, that is, businessmen and home loan borrowers who will invest it in their businesses or in the affordable housing sector. This cycle goes on, and when the rumors are spread that Great Depression or the economic recession is going to happen, what happens is that all the depositors all at a time strike the bank and they demand money. This happened in Great Depression of 1930s and in 2008. What happened was that there was one bank run when all the depositors were chasing a bank, and this one bank run was contagiously spreading to all other banks of the nation in the United States, and the Great Depression of 1930 was formed. In 2008 also, when the borrowers defaulted and when the depositors were chasing the United States of America's big banks, there was not enough money to pay them, and this was going of a Great Depression like situation in United States in 2008. 1930 was repeated in 2008, and this was the reason for the research on banking by three eminent economists and executives: Ben Bernanke, Douglas Diamond, and Philip Digwick. These three eminent personalities are this year's Sveriges Riskbank Prize for in Economic Sciences for the year 2022, selected by the Royal Academy of Sciences, Swedish Academy of Sciences, for the Nobel Prize in Economics. Ben Bernanke was the Federal Reserve Chair from 2006 to 2011, and he witnessed and he himself was instrumental in saving the United States banks from running into bank runs and great crisis in 2008. For his research on banking in 1983, Bernanke is being now rewarded. Bernanke was always wanted the banking regulations, especially led by the US Federal Reserve, that is the Central Bank of United States, to contain this crisis, the Great Depression and the Great Economic Crisis which gripped USA. In 2008's depression, he lowered the interest rates of home loan borrowers to as low as 0%. The home loan borrowers heaved a sigh of relief. There was the subprime crisis also, and the defaults were of a huge amount, and the home loan borrowers were unable to pay the money. And his 1983 research, Bernanke's 1983 research, helped USA trade over this crisis in 2008, and his postulates on this banking research and how regulations would be necessary for banking sector to contain a depression like situation helped us tide over the crisis in COVID times in 2020, when even now Jerome Powell is the US Federal Reserve Chairman. Bernanke's rules of banking, that is the regulations of banking, the tinkering with the interest rates, helped tide over the crisis of COVID. A Great Depression was averted through the great policy on banking regulation by Ben Bernanke, the 2008 to 2006 to 2011 US Federal Reserve Chairman. About the other two laureates, Douglas Diamond and Philip Digwick, researched on banking, and their research in 1984 created the idea of demand deposits. What are these demand deposits? Demand deposits are those deposits, for example, in savings account, we deposit amount, in current account, we deposit amount, which can be demanded by the borrowers at any time. It is repayable on demand. I said savings account deposits and current account deposits. These are demand deposits. And their research on banking, which resulted in maturity transformation in banks. The concept is maturity transformation. And this maturity transformation helped to channelize the investment of the borrowers to the investment by the businessmen and the home loan borrowers. The money collected from the deposits were channelized from the depositors to be invested in home affordable housing sector and the business investments by way of the research on banking, which yielded the maturity transformation. That is a long-term maturity for the banking deposits were created, and this long-term deposits were chasing the long-term borrowers, that is the home loan borrowers and the business borrowers who needed funds for the long term. There is no longer the bank runs, since the idea of this maturity transformation is implemented in practice. Douglas Diamond and Philip Digwick are also credited with the innovation of deposit insurance. That is, the deposits which we make with the bank are insured up to 1 lakh rupees in India. This is deposit insurance. Any time when the bank is unable to pay this amount, the amount to the borrowers will be met from this deposit insurance. My heartfelt congratulations to the three stalwarts, the great Nobel laureates Bernanke, Douglas Diamond, and Philip Digwick for their stupendous achievement on this point. Before I leave, the Sveriges Riskbank, which is the central bank of Sweden, and on which name this Nobel Prize is announced on economics every year. It started in 1968. This Nobel Prize was started in 1968 because 1667 this Sveriges Riskbank was formed as the Bank of Sweden, Central Bank of Sweden, which changed its name to Sveriges Riksbank in 1868. And in 1968, in its 300th year, that is tertiary centenary, tricentenary year, Nobel Prize on Economics was announced. It is very interesting to note that this Central Bank of Switzerland, Sveriges Riksbank, also has a story of bank runs. And containing the bank run was its credibility. And on this basis, 1968, this Nobel Prize was announced. A long time later, now, the Nobel Swedish Academy of Sciences is recognizing the solution to bank runs gives a fitting recognition to the containment of bank runs itself for the bank on whose name this Nobel Prize is being instituted. That is a very interesting feature of this year's Nobel Prize. Remember, Sveriges Riskbank is remembered through this Nobel Prize of 2022. Thank you.